Hi, Malcolm Nance. How are you?
Good morning, Steffi. How are you?
Oh, it's the manest of man caves you're in.
Not a gun in sight. So,
What is that forged by the sea? What is that behind you? Oh, and those are your swords.
yeah, that's my cutlass. As a matter of fact, chiefs have cutlass, officers have rapiers, uh,
Ah,
Oh.
or sit or so. That's where I keep my cutlass and my knives and stuff like that. Forged by the seas, the Navy's motto.
The manliest. I hear in my head I'm on a ship with men. I'm on a ship with men.
I,
there
It's
are
great.
women on those
I,
ships now too.
It's great to be on a ship with men. All right. Yes, I
I
know.
wanted to
Okay.
show you where the whiskey and sherry is kept.
Ah,
Only thing I'm missing is a manly candle
All
yeah, there
right.
you go.
You
in
are the
leather scent.
Oh, get one from
Yeah, leather
bandedmasculine.com.
scent. That's the manliest of them all.
Leather and sea salt and gunpowder.
How
Yeah,
about
That's what this room would smell like.
totally.
Kentucky bourbon and humidor? Get those.
Yeah.
Manly.
Yes, Kentucky bourbon.
I think I grew some hair on my balls. Okay. What? No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
Okay, one man, this is the one tweet I want to talk to you about. Senator Richard Blumenthal, you probably saw this, said in advance of the classified briefing I'll hear later today. This was, yes, I reviewed classified documents this morning. They are chilling. Declassify this information. Americans deserve and need to know about ongoing foreign interference, even sabotage in our election system. You saw that Nancy Pelosi said the same, that you are not telling the American people the truth. I mean, they had to squeeze out of him what we all know, that yes, of course Russia is trying to help Trump again. But
Right.
what I'm concerned about, because obviously they can only say so much when it's classified, but when they say classified and chilling in the same sentence, Malcolm, only you would know, what are they talking about? Because it's got to be worse than last time, than
Yes.
2016, right?
Well, let's put some historical perspective onto this. If you recall back in 2016, this very month is today's the 5th. So it would have been 4 years ago yesterday. John Brennan, the director of the CIA, actually was instructed by President Obama to call the director of Russian intelligence and warn him that we are aware of what he was doing by stealing emails and releasing disinformation. The Russians, of course, ignored it because Donald Trump had already asked them to come out and steal information and put it into the information sphere. What we're seeing now is the Russians, of course, they're not holding off on anything. They have been given permission over the last 4 years to do whatever it takes to assist Donald Trump. So if the intelligence that they saw, if they said it was chilling, well, that means that it was something that was most likely actionable, that was in process, that could have a direct impact on American citizens. But then again, this very same time, 4 years ago, Mitch McConnell was briefed exactly as they were briefed that the Russians were carrying out these activities, and he refused to sign on to any joint statement that would threaten Russia or to release information about Russia. And that's why back in the day, 4 years ago, then they were using these same phrases. Democrats will not break the law and release classified information. Republicans do it all the time.
Yeah.
They will come right out and say, hey, we know X, Y, and Z. The Democrats always speak in this roundabout way, and Republicans know how to trap them by giving them the information and then knowing they won't open their mouths about it.
I, yeah, I mean, it really. How you must feel. I know how I feel. How you must feel when you see Ron Johnson and Trump repeating Putin's talking points about us arming the Taliban back in blah blah blah. Right? When Trump is asked again in the Jonathan Swan interview, point blank, about Russian bounties and arming the Taliban. Right? But Ron Johnson, who is actively funneling Russian disinformation to try to hurt Joe Biden. Right?
Yep, absolutely. And there is a technical term that is used in Europe when you're trying to describe a politician from a foreign country who was a senior leader who has been bought by Russian oligarchs and is now acting as their spokesperson. And that's called Schroederization. Because the former German premier, Helmut Schroeder, Gerhard Schroeder, was actually one of those guys. He's done the full Steven Seagal thing where he's gone to Russia, he's surrounded with women and money, And every time he opens his mouth, he opens it in defense of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so common in Europe for these politicians to be bought. They use the word in the paper, Schroederization.
Yeah.
You are looking at the Schroederization of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Johnson is now a shill for Russian intelligence.
Yeah.
He is a mouthpiece for Vladimir Putin. So is Rand Paul, who actually takes letters over for Donald Trump. And they are all becoming these little Donald Trump bought and sold clones, and who have been completely Schroederized.
Malcolm, I know this Jonathan Swan cuckoo banana bread interview, but this was the part I wanted you to save. Yeah, this part. Go ahead.
Even if you don't believe this particular piece of intelligence, and there is dispute, no doubt there is dispute in the intelligence community about it. Your former, John Nicholson, former head of forces in Afghanistan, said, and this is when he was working for you, that Russia is supplying weapons to the Taliban. Isn't that enough to challenge Putin over the killings of US soldiers?
Well, we supplied weapons when they were fighting Russia too. You know, when they were fighting with the Taliban in Afghanistan.
It's a different era.
Well, it's a different. I'm just saying, yes.
But does that?
I'm just saying we did that too.
Russian talking point, right?
Yeah.
Same as when Bill O'Reilly said, Putin's a killer. He's like, so were a lot of people, so were we. I mean, it's always been so obvious he's a Russian asset that it's, somebody's written a bunch of books about it, but yeah.
Schroederized sounds like another scrote.
Yeah,
so,
but I was actually looking for the soundbite when he said about it didn't reach my desk. You're like, the very nature of the presidential daily brief is it hit your desk, and John Bolton briefed you on it. It's just him being able to just sit there bald-faced and say, oh, no, it didn't reach my desk. It didn't reach the level. I would have done something if it had. Is just a lie.
The man is owned by Vladimir Putin. It's as simple as that. And, the Mueller report never, because it was not in the mandate, they never looked into the link between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. They never looked into
the money,
a possible financial relationship or personal relationship, whether he was in debt. I'm telling you, someday we are all going to be apologizing to Benedict Arnold for bad-mouthing him so much. Yeah. Donald Trump will be found as one of the greatest living traitors in American history. I think that he was, the 4 years that he's been there, is what George Washington specifically warned about in his final address, right? That a foreign power would intend to influence our leaders and steer them around by a nose ring. Little did we know that 244 years later, for the first time, an American president was essentially an asset of a foreign power.
Well, and Malcolm, I think it's, what was I going to say? Sorry, that thought left me for a moment. No, but I think this is always, forget that you've written 3 books about it. It just seems like it's always been so obvious from every one of his answers. And I know what you were saying about follow the money, which is what they always say. I think you're right. A lot of people, Malcolm, didn't know that it wasn't in Mueller's mandate and that SDNY, maybe not until now, is looking at the money. And you're right, this is all going to come out. Do you think New York is going to get his financials, before the election? It looks like they may. I mean, Neil Katyal says they may. This is moving very quickly.
Yeah, the DA, Cyrus Vance, is probably going to get that information. Pay no attention to him. The person who he really fears is Letitia James, the Attorney General of the state of New York. She is a pit bull.
Yeah.
I mean, she went toe-to-toe with Trump when he was making fun of New York State, and she tweets right back at him. I think the grudge is deeply held here. And I also think that they know that if you get Trump, you probably get 100 or 200 other people who've committed fraud against the state of New York, fraud against the United States government. Look, these people are fighting for their lives here, their livelihood as well. They are trying to stay out of prison, which is why this is the most important election in American history.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when this story came out, President Trump and his company investigated for possible fraud. You're like, we know this. Michael Cohen said it. The New York Times Pulitzer Prize-winning piece said it, that his business model has always been fraud. I don't know how he hasn't been in prison before this, but you're right. This is, you know,
But
and
you
again,
know-
and it's not just, it's bank fraud, it's wire fraud, it's insurance fraud, and okay, so.
You know what kills me? The enablers on the left, the far left media, the Glenn Greenwalds, the Matt Taibbi's, the Isaac Chothers, these guys I called the Trump Russia truthers. They flat out questioned everything that was done. They flat out questioned impeachment. They would go around, and of course, they called me a fraud 100 times. Andrew Sullivan.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh,
I
Don't get me
fabricated
started.
everything. We see this with our own eyes.
Yeah.
We see it with our eyes, and we literally have a fifth column of Trumpers and other enablers who call themselves the left, who say none of the stuff that you saw is true.
Yeah.
You've wired a conspiracy theory together, and every time I open my mouth, here's what I hear from the Trump. It's a hoax.
And by the way, this all comes full circle before we go, is in Kamala Harris, I think, who obviously, I don't know, Malcolm, I know she's your favorite. I love her. I think she's certainly rumored to be perhaps his VP pick, but it's already started. I mean, first of all, you know that her campaign was the #1 target of Russian bots, that Russia
Right.
and the Trump campaign were most afraid of Kamala Harris. So I think that was a factor, you know, in what happened with her campaign. But here they go again. And it's also with help from the far left, this anti-Kamala stuff and the Russian bots and the fact that, you know, and I hate this whole, as a woman, Malcolm, I hate this whole Veep stakes, how there's all this opposition research now being dumped against everybody, all these women, and trying to turn themselves against each other, and particularly black women against each other. And the good news is they're not having it, right?
Let me tell you, my favorite part is that a woman who's ambitious, I want a Wonder Woman like Amazon.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yes.
I need somebody with a golden lasso and a spear. I want someone who can take command.
Yeah.
Because look at all these nations with women leaders have the lowest level of coronavirus infection.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works. Maybe it's time for us to get a number 2 who will be the executive officer of Joe Biden, who will go out and get things done.
Yeah.
Because this nation is if we win this election, and again, if people aren't, like you said just in the last segment, if people aren't voting right now, checking their information right now, are not committed with their life to go out and vote on election day right now, it's all over. They are going to cheat extraordinarily. So we have to commit ourselves to making sure that we stand up and defend the nation.
I read Ron Wyden's, I'm going to keep reading it all morning. Senator Wyden said Donald Trump is sabotaging the Postal Service in an attempt to rig the election in his favor. There are ways to avoid his attempts to suppress your vote. If your state's using vote by mail in November, request your ballot and vote ASAP or use a local drop box.
You know what?
Turn out, and go ahead.
I don't know who it's going to be, but someone needs to harness the protest energy we just saw with Black Lives Matter, and in mid-October, turn out the largest protest in American history. It has to happen.
Yeah.
And make it a voter registration drive at the same time. Peaceful, with which we're here to save democracy. Someone has to do this.
Yep. All right, Malcolm, good luck to you in your man cave and whatever man things you have planned on your man schedule.
Going to West Point.
Oh,
Yeah.
manly.
Totes
All right,
manly.
love you. Bye, sailor.